The Pitchsider. Pitchside for every game.
Hello and welcome to the Pitchsider Podcast. Welcome back to this week. This is the weekly update podcast. Hope you've all had a nice week, and there's definitely been a lot of football talk. We've had a number of London derbies this week. We've also had the Manchester derby, and we've also had a thrashing in Italy. So a lot of football to get onto. So let's get started and let's get into it. Let's start this week with the Premier League. So in the Premier League this week, one of the biggest games was Arsenal-Tottenham, probably the biggest London derby at the moment, especially from this week's worth of football. Arsenal beat Tottenham 2-0. This also links into the Manchester derby. The Manchester derby was between United and City, and United got a controversial 2-1 victory over City. City, obviously, if you're a City fan, you're probably going to be complaining that there was a sort of a offside goal allowed by VAR from Rashford, but eventually it means City have dropped points in the title race with Arsenal, and obviously Arsenal beating Tottenham 2-0 today. Led to Arsenal now having a 8-point gap at the top of the table. Arsenal do play City in a couple of weeks, so it's definitely Arsenal's to lose now in the Premier League, especially if they get this win over City. You would think that they would actually go and win the Premier League, and yeah, this is definitely probably going to be their year. I suppose this is a bit of a shock. Some of the big teams are sort of pulling off, but with City, Newcastle and Manchester United all about 9-8 points off Arsenal, they've got a good barrier to them go and sort of progress and do well. Arsenal got a very good team, very well. I've been quite lucky with not getting as many injuries as some of the bigger teams have got. But yeah, it's definitely good to see a sort of a different team winning and doing well in the Premier League. City were obviously a team that we would have thought would have gone and beat United, but United were very strong in their defence. They only let in the one goal. Haaland sort of was very well managed. His goals have dipped a bit in recent times, but it's very likely that he'll probably pick up form again. Yeah, the Arsenal City game coming up in a few weeks is probably going to be the title decider, especially if Arsenal win this. They're going to be a good number of points above City, which are most people's sort of their title rivals. But yeah, it's definitely Arsenal to lose now. Elsewhere in the Premier League, big teams like Chelsea and Liverpool still struggle for form. So Chelsea had a mixed bag of results, losing 1-0 to Chelsea losing to Fulham, and then but then just narrowly beating Palace. But it was a good end-to-end game from today. Liverpool lost 3-0 to Brighton. So both teams are level on points. Liverpool have a game in hand on Chelsea and above them on goal difference, but both teams are very struggling. Liverpool have signed new striker forward Gakpo, so he's still finding his feet in the Premier League. Chelsea have made another couple of signings within this week, which we'll get onto later in the podcast. But yeah, both teams seem to lack something in goal, definitely lack something in the defence, and it's worrying times for both fans. Both managers don't seem to be near the sack. Both sort of are relying on squads, maybe. But it's definitely going to be a interesting one, and be interesting to see how they get on. Chelsea definitely have an excuse with a lot of injuries. Liverpool have a few injuries. Some of their bigger players are missing certain players. So it'd be interesting to see if all teams had a fully fit squad where they would be. And it would definitely be an interesting sort of league as no one got injured, but that is the way of football and the way of life. So it makes it interesting. But certain teams that are relishing this sort of opportunity thrown in by Liverpool and Chelsea are teams above them. Fulham, Newcastle definitely in the top three. Brighton, Brentford, all up there. Aston Villa on hot on heels. Very tight between 5th place and 10th. Only 5 points in it. And yeah, I mean, Fulham have played 2 more games than a lot of the teams in this sort of 5-6 teams. But those teams might play each other. Brentford and Fulham definitely sort of up there. You wouldn't have expected them maybe to do this well. But one team that's in very good form at the moment is Nottingham Forest. They were in the sort of the relegation zone, but after a couple of wins, they're now up to 13th in the league, only 2 points behind Crystal Palace. So they're definitely doing well. Definitely got a good run of form. Hopefully, just can see them stay up this year in the Premier League. But it does cast doubt over West Ham, Everton, Southampton, all teams that have been in the Premier League for a long time. And these are the 3 teams sitting in bottom. But definitely the teams from 14th to 20th, anyone can get relegated. There's only 2 points in it, with Leeds, Leicester, Wolves, Bournemouth, West Ham, Everton and Southampton all in the fight of relegation. Any team can go down. West Ham would be big shock with players like Declan Rice, them being in Europe last year as well. And this year it's a big shock to see them this far down. Everton obviously were a team that were floating around there last year. Frank Lampard managed to save them, but his days numbered. Time will tell. Bit of a sad news coming out of Brighton, an ex-Brighton player, former Brighton midfielder Mbapu, has been taken to hospital in Zimbabwe after falling ill, Formula Club says. 25-year-old was forced to retire in October because he had a heart condition, and we reported it on the Pitchsider. But he's been taken unwell and he's undergoing precautionary checks. We'll definitely keep you up to date on our social medias. It's a flipping story. It's definitely one to sort of no one would like to see and no one wants to see. He was an up-and-coming star in Brighton and definitely did well under Graham Potter. But it's something to... We hope he does well, and we send all our love and wishes from the Pitchsider to his family and himself, and we will think of him in our thoughts. Let's move on to Europe. There's been a couple of big news stories that have come out from the Europe. Big games have happened. At the moment, as we record this, Real Madrid are facing Barcelona in the Spanish Super Cup final. At the current score at the moment is 0-0 with 21 minutes being played. Benzema had just narrowly missed a goal. But as we record this, we'll definitely sort of keep you up to date. When this comes out, you would have seen the final score. My money's probably on Barcelona to win this over Real Madrid. Barcelona seem to be more in form at the moment, but it's definitely a good game to watch. But one of the best games to watch from this weekend was Napoli versus Juventus. This was definitely sort of one of these big 6-pointers in the title race. Napoli have absolutely thrashed Juventus. If you haven't gone to watch this game, definitely worth a watch. They thrashed Juventus 5-1, which is definitely a big shock, and Napoli fans definitely will now start to believe that they can go and win this cup. And is it this year to sort of go and win them? And will we have a different winner of the Serie A for 4th year running? In the game, it was 5-1. Di Marino did manage to score a consolation goal for Juventus, but their key man, Osimhen, he scored 2 goals and got an assist. He's definitely going to be the Pitchsider Player of the Week. But it does move them 10 points clear at the moment. I think AC Milan did draw, so they are only 9 points now. They're 9 points in 9 points clear of the title race. As again with Arsenal, it's definitely in their title to lose now. But we're still halfway through the season, still a number of games to go. Anything could happen in football, as we do know. So it'd be interesting to see how far this will go. And yeah, it'd be nice to see Napoli win their first title after 33 years of pain. But yeah, this definitely was a good step in the right direction. Sort of one hand on the trophy for them. A couple of news stories. So if you haven't gone to watch this game, definitely worth a watch. Definitely sort of our pick to go and rewatch the highlights if you haven't done. Elsewhere, Barcelona have gained a 3-point sort of gap on Real Madrid in the Liga. Real Sociedad have 3 points from sitting third, with Atletico Madrid starting to build up some points. In the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich are in the Bundesliga. No games have been played this weekend. Serie A, PSG continue to dominate with Marseille and Lens. Lens been up in top 3 spots. But yeah, again, it's PSG's to lose. It's always PSG's to lose in that competition. Let's have a look at some of the news stories that are coming out. So if we just quickly go back to Italy, supporters of Roma and Napoli have been banned from attending away matches for 2 months after they clashed at a service station on Sunday. It caused a brief closure to the motorway. Napoli ultras, they threw stones and smoke bombs at the side of the road. Roma fans. Roma supporters were heading to their team's Serie A match against AC Milan and stopped to retaliate with the clash and spread into service stations. This isn't something we'd like to see in football. Everyone should be able to travel to games safely without getting injured. And yeah, this disrupts everyone else's. It's not something we like to see in football. Fans should be there to celebrate the game, support their teams. And yeah, they can be you can chants and that against other clubs and that. But after the game, that's where it should end. Definitely people can continue supporting their clubs, but not with violence. It's only a football game at the end of the day. It's not worth injuring someone over this. But this is the world and this is what happens. It's sort of sad to see. So now Roma and Napoli will have, for 2 months, will not have any fans attend their away games, which is a massive sort of negative point, because away fans have, especially when a team's starting to slip, can definitely have a big effect on how well the club does. So it's very sad to see. In French football, the French Football Federation president, Noël Le Graët, is stepping down until an investigation into claims of sexual harassment and bullying at the organisation is complete. The French government began an audit in October after being made aware of the allegations. The French Football Federation president denies any wrongdoing of this, but he has previously faced claims over sexual harassment, which he denies. And this comes after Zinedine Zidane calls for him to quit. Zinedine Zidane has also been rumoured to be taking over the French job, but the French Football Federation president has said he will not take a call from Zidane about becoming the French coach before apologising for his clumsy remarks. So there seems to be some standoff why this sort of investigation happens. Zidane obviously is a football legend in France and probably one of the leading candidates to take over that French role, but he will probably, what he's done is probably right, but he's probably hurt his chance at getting this job. The FFF president was meant to. He took office in 2011, and he is to continue his role until 2024, depending on the results of this audit. The audit results are expected at the end of this month, so if we hear more on this, we'll definitely let you know. The final bit of news for this week out of Europe is PSG are threatening to quit their stadium, the Parc des Princes, in a row over ownership of the stadium. So if you don't know, the 47,000 capacity stadium was built in 1974 and is owned by Paris, owned by the French government, and it is believed that it needs significant regeneration, which will cost around 500 million euros, and which is equivalent of 443.45 million pounds. The PSG owners are willing to fund the work, but only if they are allowed to buy the stadium. The plan has been rejected by the mayor of Paris, which he told a French newspaper that the Parc des Princes is not for sale and will not be sold. PSG have reacted angrily, saying that the stance will cost the taxpayer money. The club, who argued that the renovations and the increase in capacity would allow it to generate more income in line with other clubs in Europe, saying that it's sadly forced to advance alternate options for a home and could see a move outside of Paris. PSG spokesman said it's surprising and disappointing to hear that the mayor of Paris is taking a position which effectively forces PSG and our fans and communities from the Parc des Princes. PSG and the Parc des Princes are proud part of French history. PSG have already invested more than 85 million euros into the stadium to maintain it, while committing an additional 500 million euros in renovations for its fans to allow PSG to grow and compete with other clubs at the highest level in Europe. Obviously, the enormous investment would only be made by PSG if they are allowed to own the stadium. It was regrettable that the mayor is suddenly foreclosed indefinitely the sale and discussions we have been having for a long time, and the club will now badly forced to advance alternate options for our home. So it's sad to see when a club moves away from its sort of home it's had for a number of years. This sort of rings bells of sort of West Ham, when they moved to the new London stadium. PSG have always been around in Paris. Most clubs don't own their stadium, or they do nowadays, but most clubs sort of own their stadiums now, with a few exceptions. But this is sort of a landmark in Paris, and sort of losing sort of PSG. I don't know what it would be used for. It probably will still be used for like the French national games. Maybe it'll be sort of a Wembley, sort of where there's no club football played there, but all the competition finals are played there. And yeah, whether it would just be sort of France's sort of main stadium, but it probably will need renovations, especially only being 47,000. Most sort of countries like England with Wembley, it's over nearly 90, and yeah, it would need a big renovation. But with PSG moving away from that, probably it's likely not to get that, and the stadium will probably just become the French national team stadium, and PSG will probably find a new home. But it'd definitely be sad to sort of see PSG leave Paris, which has been their home for a number of years. But yeah, if we hear more on this, we'll let you know. If we always do, any stories, any news will obviously be on our socials with Twitter and Instagram, which also leads us very nicely on to where you can find any transfers that have happened. Transfers will be on our socials as well, with Twitter and Instagram, which is the Pitchsider. So let's get on to some of transfers. We'll quickly go through some of the confirmed transfers. But before we do that, Xavi has scored a goal in the Real Madrid-Barcelona game. So at the moment, as I predicted, Barcelona are winning. They are the better team, it looks like. So let's go over some sort of confirmed transfers. So let's start with the sort of two big transfers from the 11th. João Felix has signed for Chelsea on loan, which we did see him play in the Fulham game, which he did get sent off and now has received a 3-match ban. But yeah, it could be a good signing for Chelsea. It's a 6-month loan, £11 million paid for 6 months, which is quite a lot of money. But he did definitely have a good impact on the Chelsea team. Seemed to sort of be their only bright spark until he did get sent off in about the 65 minute in the Fulham game. So it'd definitely be interesting to see how well he does in the Premier League. But Graham Potter's tactics seemed to suit him slightly well. He had a few more chances and created a few chances as well. But the Chelsea team sort of need to get into a rhythm to be able to sort of take full advantage of him. Elsewhere, Aston Villa have signed Real Betis fullback Alex Moreno for £13.2 million. We did see him make his debut quite early on into the Aston Villa game on Friday. He looks to be a very good sort of competition for Lucas Digne. So it'd be interesting to see how well he settles to the Premier League. Else on the 13th, Manchester United have signed Weghorst on loan from Burnley after he terminated his loan in Pitchsider. So it'd be interesting to see how he does in United. He did have a good start when he came in January last year for Burnley, but he unfortunately did not stop them from getting relegated. And Wolves have signed Mario Lamela from Nice. So let's see how well he can do in the Premier League. Leeds have signed Hoffenheim player Rudder for £36 million. He is their club record fee, signing a forward. So it'd be interesting to see how well he can do. Only 20 years old, signed a 5.5-year deal. He scored 11 goals in the 64 appearances for the Bundesliga since 2011. So definitely see how well he can do and how he settles into the Premier League. The biggest signing of the week, there was a big battle between Arsenal and Chelsea for Mudryk from Shakhtar Donetsk. Chelsea have signed him for an initial £62 million, rising up to €89 million. So this is equivalent of about €100 million. Massive signing for Chelsea. Obviously beating Arsenal to the signing of him, and he was paraded around at half-time against Palace. Could be a very good signing, and could make his debut as quickly as Thursday against Liverpool with all of Chelsea's issues. But see how well he can get on and whether he can live up to the monetary value that Chelsea have paid for him. Let's talk about some of the gossip from this week and sort of rumours. Chelsea have continued to make a bid for forwards, and they have made a £26.5 million bid for PSV's England under-21 winger Nuno Madueke, which is 20. Could be a good signing, but now they've signed Mudryk, it could be different and probably likely to be sort of one that's not going to be sort of forgotten about. Liverpool have ended their contract talks with Naby Keita and are going to let the 27-year-old leave on a free transfer, which is probably going to be... I mean, he's not been fantastic for them, so it's probably a good decision, especially if they want to free up space to bring on other midfielders. With Chelsea, Jorginho is likely to leave the club on a free, with with Kante likely to sign a contract by the end of the month. Chelsea have had a loan bid rejected for Antonio by West Ham. Crystal Palace have launched a new bid for Conor Gallagher in January after the 22-year-old has dropped down in the pecking order, but it's likely to be rejected like it was in the summer. An interesting one is with Memphis Depay. He's been rumoured a lot to be leaving Barcelona this January. His contract expires in the summer, so someone's probably likely to pick him up on a free. But Barcelona are in no rush to sell him. But you've been linked to another sort of number of clubs, especially with like Newcastle and Manchester United all in for him. Whether he leaves, it could lead to Barcelona trying to re-sign Aubameyang from Chelsea. Aubameyang, if he is sold, can only go to Barcelona and play. If he goes to another club, he can't play for the rest of the season. So he's probably likely to go in the summer and stay with Chelsea. Chelsea obviously are keen to keep him with the number of injuries they've got. But as soon as these players start to come back, he probably will be sold. Ruben Neves is rumoured to be linked to Newcastle. He had a market value of 40 million. So it could be a good signing for Newcastle, and could be sort of the player that could really push them to challenge for the title. And especially they need an upgrade in the midfield, especially with Jonjo Shelvey being one of their main centre mids. Ruben Neves will definitely be an upgrade on him. There's been a couple of rumours saying that Messi wants to leave PSG. Likely he's probably going to sign a new contract with them, but a club that have expressed an interest, or whether it's just a rumour that's been made up, is Man City, sort of wanting reinforcements maybe up front. Another one for Chelsea is Moises Caicedo. He's one of these players that is linked to Chelsea under under Potter. And Arsenal, now they've lost out on Modric, and they are sort of expressed an interest in Barcelona's Rafinha. Rafinha he started 7 games in La Liga this season after his big money move, and hasn't really hit the ground running. So whether Barcelona want to cut ties with him and sort of trying to rebalance their books a little bit, could be interesting to see. I mean, the biggest news from this weekend is Chelsea have signed Modric, and he is probably going to be one of the biggest transfers in January. Modric has been involved in 14 goals in just 12 appearances in the Uruguayan Premier League this season. 7 goals, 7 assists, and is the most of any players to contribute to a goal in every 65 minutes on average. So that's probably why he is quite pricey. He's definitely got very high potential, which a lot of clubs have seen. Brendan Rodgers have said that after their defeat, they definitely need reinforcements in January. After the defeat to Nottingham Forest, Frank Lampard has said that his side definitely need more. Frank Lampard has said that they need to actually start signing players, and he's not a miracle worker, he knows he's not the best coach, but he believes he can get the players that he has success with a few extra additions. So yeah, that about wraps up this sort of week's podcast. Keep an eye on our socials for the latest transfer rumours. We'll definitely keep you up to date day to day, and if we hear any more news stories or that to keep you informed, we'll be posting them on there. I hope you have a nice week, and thank you for listening, and goodbye.
For all the latest news, transfers and football articles, check out thepitchsider.com. It's the place to be. Contact us on our socials. Instagram and Twitter is @thepitchsider, or via email is thepitchsider@hotmail.com.